Well, good morning, ladies. My name is Stephanie Schwartz. I'm the Director of Women's Ministry here at Compass. And before we introduce these beautiful women, I wanted to mention that I actually remember teaching kids at a private school the difference between covalent and ionic bonds. And I remember experiencing meltdowns with homeschoolers who were learning math. And I also remember packing lunches for my daughters as they went off to public school. All that to say that I have learned that there truly is not only one good way to educate your kids. There's a variety of ways that we can educate our kids, and that's what we're here to talk about this morning. There's a concept that scholars referred to where they distinguish the difference between what's called mandates and methods. So mandates are things that we have to do, like you have to feed your kids and you have to educate your kids. But methods are the way that we do those things. Like some people want to breastfeed, some people want to bottle feed. Either is fine as long as you feed your kids. With education, it's the same thing. Some people like public school, some like private school, some like homeschool, some like even a hybrid school. And all of those options are okay. There's not one that's necessarily better than the other. They're just different methods that we can use to complete the mandate that we're called to, and that is to educate our kids. So we've got to make these decisions then. What methods will we use? And especially when it comes to schooling, what method are we going to use when it comes to schooling our kids? So we need to step back and we need to gather information. We just need to wisely gather information and say, what's out there? What's available to me? And then we need to be humble and prayerful about it. We need to ask God, what is it that you want me and my family to do here? And then we also need to make sure that we're engaging the input, getting the input, teaming up together with our husbands and our families to determine what is right for each unique child at each unique season of time. So our panel this morning is here to help us collect that information. We have people representing all different forms of educational options, and we're going to hear from them and try to get a good battery of information so that we might be more equipped when we're called to make the decisions, or as we're called to make that decision to educate our kids. So we will have our beautiful panel introduce themselves. We'll begin with Anji. You want to tell us who you are and what you do here?
Sure. Hi, my name is Anji Chung. I'm one of the Thursday table leaders here at NAVMO, and I have been married to my husband David for 18 years now, and we have 3 children. Our oldest, Evan, is a freshman at San Juan Hills High School. My second, Aaron, is in 6th grade, which is middle school for us in Ladera Ranch, and then my youngest, Anna, is 4th grade at Oso Grande in Ladera Ranch.
And as you guys can hear, Anji has a beautiful voice. And I just learned yesterday that she's from Australia. And Jen, what about you?
So I'm Jennifer Wachorik. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm married to Jason. We have 4 kids. Ryan is 14, Mary is 10, Lex is 7, and Levi is 5. I've been serving at NAVMO for about 7 years, and we've been at Compass for 10 years, and the very first time that any of our family, me, came onto this campus was for NAVMO 10 years ago.
Oh, that's exciting. And Jen has such an interesting last name. I remember coming up with all these bizarre ways to pronounce it. And she said, just think of the vacuum, the auric, and then ask which auric. And I'm like, I can do that.
That's how I learned how to say it, too.
Julia, what about you?
Hi, I'm Julia Park. I am married to my husband, Patrick Park, for 14 years. April, things changed. All the numbers update. So my daughter she's now 12, and she's in 6th grade this year. And my son, he is 8, and he is in 2nd grade this year. I've served in a few different capacities here at NAVMO, from admin, table leader, and proudly caffeinating woman at the barista on Thursdays.
And Julia, I have to mention my middle child, my daughter Hannah. When she first met you, she said, "Julia Park is so beautiful." Yeah, and I thought, that's so true. She said just the way that she carries herself with such grace and poise. So I thought I'd throw that in for you.
Hi, my name is Karen, and my husband is Bobby. We've been married 20 years this year. We have 3 girls and 1 baby girl on the way. So high schooler, sophomore, Carrie Ann, and then Brianna is in 8th grade. My littlest one, she's over there. She's 6. And then little baby girl due in August. We've been at Compass for 14 years. I've been in Navigating Motherhood for 13 now, serving as a table leader and then also helping lead the Thursday team.
Yes, that's right. Karen is our Thursday director. So she does a lot for us. And if you don't know, Karen bakes the most amazing cakes. Our family is like a cake family, and we bought from her the birthday cake for my granddaughter's 2nd birthday, and it was the most amazing cake we've ever had in our life, the way that it looked and the way that it tasted too. So if you need a cake, seriously, go to Karen for cakes. They are amazing.
Oh, and also representing the hybrid model for school.
Yes. And mentioning that is great, because if you guys could just real quickly in a couple sentences describe your method that you're using for schooling and what it means.
So for us, our children are all in public school, and the public school system is from kindergarten through 12th grade. Even adult institutions can be public if they're government funded and they're run by the government, and anyone that is enrolled is allowed to have that education through them, and they have credentialed teachers.
Okay, and I'm representing private Christian schools. So private Christian schools are an in-person option. They have a similar schedule to a public school, kind of your 8 to 3, September through June schedule. But they don't receive government funding, and so they're not subject to government regulations, so they're not required to have specific curriculum. Christian schools typically have a Bible-centered curriculum, and the main goal is to have an outcome of a biblical worldview for the kids.
And I'm representing homeschool, which is basically home-based education. It just takes you from your traditional brick and mortar schools, and you're doing things in home. That can look like a variety of ways. You can still do it through government funding with a charter, but you will be under the government standards, or you could choose to do it private, where you are removing yourself from that, which also removes you from government funding.
Yeah, and then the hybrid model is basically a blend of all of them. So we have the olders who are in a dual enrollment with the public school, but also do a homeschool program through the public school. And then we have my youngest, who's also a homeschooler, but we go through a charter school, and she doesn't go through the public system.
Well, that's a big variety to choose from right there. So we're going to ask that you guys give us the reason why we should choose the same schooling choice that you've chosen. Why should we public school, Angie?
So I'll give you some benefits of the public school system. Definitely the cost and the convenience of it is something that we can't deny. The government pays, and we pay through our taxes for the school. So the money that we do save for that school, we can put it into other things outside of school. Also, this may not be the case for a lot of people, but for us, we have a really good public school system here where we live. It's highly rated. The teachers, the education, college prep even, the extracurricular activities, all of these things are really well established. And for the most part, we've had really amazing teachers. They are dedicated to what they do. They love teaching. They love the children. And I really respect what they do day in and day out to provide an education for our kids that I could never provide for them, to help them to learn in ways that my kids are just thriving in that. And so I'm really thankful for that. Also, you can't, there's so many extracurricular activities. There's sports, music, clubs, different programs that the children can go through that really is well established. What else? So I could just give you a few examples. My oldest, he was a part of a program called PAL, which stands for Peer Assisted Leadership, in 7th and 8th grade and middle school. This is a program where the students get together and not only just work with their own age group, but with the grade above and below. And they come together as a team to support the school. They help the teachers. They serve the other students. And we really saw a really big growth in his character and just his confidence over those years. And I really think that that really shaped who he is today. It's really helped him to come out of his shell. He was very introverted, but now he can confidently go out and meet new people. And so that's really helped our oldest. Our boys are both in the school orchestra system and they love it. It's been a really valuable experience for them. Just learning to come together and have that discipline to provide a really quality performance for at the end of every few months or so, I think they have a performance. And our youngest, she actually got speech therapy through the public school system. She did about a year because she had some pronunciation issues. I don't know if it was my fault, but but it didn't take long. I think about a year in, she was able to graduate out of the class, and she was really sad because she loved the class and she loved the teachers there. So that's that. But last but not least, it's right in our community. It's definitely a benefit because they can make those relationships and friends and socialize with people that are nearby. And ultimately, we can develop those connections with them too, share the love of Christ and invite them to church.
That's great. What about you, Jen? Why would you suggest that we use private schools?
So we've been in private Christian schools since my youngest was in kindergarten. And I actually last year joined the team. Now I work at the school where my youngest 3 attend. And I work as the school librarian and before and after school and summer camp director. So I hope that my opinion is not too biased because I really love it. But the number one thing is that a biblical worldview is taught across all subjects. God is the center of every single day at our school. The class sizes are small. There's a low student-to-teacher ratio. Often there is a paraeducator in the class so that kids are able to get individualized attention. The teacher gets less distractions, things like that. Students are also evaluated on an individual basis. So I have a son who last year in kindergarten, he was reading chapter books and he was, it was clear that he was advanced beyond his grade level. And starting at the beginning of the year, the kindergarten teacher was evaluating him and involved several other people on campus and decided to have him skip a grade. And that flexibility was huge for him. He's challenged in his class. He's not feeling like bored at school. He's not discouraged. And it's just meant a lot for him. Relationships between parents and teachers and administration and staff is huge. The parents are involved. there is a need for parents to be volunteering on field trips. For example, a lot of times we'll have almost every parent with their kid on a field trip. We're going on a big 4th grade field trip to the Sacramento area, and every student has a parent going with them. So I think that comfort level is really important. There's a lot of freedom to enhance the curriculum in whatever way the teacher feels like is a good fit for her class, so his or her class. I being the library teacher, I don't have to teach the Dewey Decimal System. I am able to create my own curriculum. So in October, we did a unit on reading and studying the Bible, and I was able to bring in resources and tools and teach these kids and get them excited and inspired to read the Bible. And so I felt really empowered, to be able to do what was good for these kids. There's another teacher at school in 3rd grade. They do a president assembly where they all have to dress up as a president and pretend to be the president. And that teacher decided to do an inaugural ball. So the students all had to learn to slow dance in 3rd grade. So it's just, kind of etiquette and things like that. There's another teacher that's doing the life cycle of chickens right now. And so she's got eggs in her classroom that are going to hatch, and the kids are going to get to see them grow up a little bit. As far as other kids in relationships, they pair older kids with younger kids for prayer partners. So it's not just the staff and the teachers and the administration that's pouring into the kids, it's other kids pouring into the kids. So it's just layers on layers of awesomeness. But working there has really shown me more and more about the heart behind it and just the care and precise just the details that go into the education of every child on that campus.
That's wonderful. And we have another option. Julie, can you tell us why we should homeschool?
Well, it sounds big, but we are their first and natural teacher as their mothers, and that's such a great privilege that you get to just walk alongside these children. It was nerve-wracking for me, but if you can teach your children how to eat, you could teach them how to walk and talk. You've taught them so much already. Just like Jen said, a biblical worldview, you are there to really shape and choose the curriculum when you're teaching things that are questionable, like science and history. And when you get to even use math, and they could learn how to unscramble facts, and they play them within Bible verses, you're re-emphasizing the things that are biblically important to you, and they could do that across subjects. We as a family get to set our visions and goals for what we would want for our kids and their education goals. So it allows us to disciple and to steward our children, to train them up what is biblical, and so we can tie that in through devotions in our daytime. We can do that by embedding curriculum through the day, if it's like a study of the fruits of the Spirit, if it's working on a verse, if it's working through maybe just a focus or intention in actually practicing that in the home. We get to model and practice that throughout the day, and I'm there to direct and to see the things and to re-emphasize what we were working on for that day or the month. So it's really great to see that the relationships between the siblings are being strengthened, and also between the parent and the child. You get to see a first row seat into their education and how they learn. God has created each of the children in their own unique interests, the way they learn, just in the way that they process things. And so I, as their mom, can set them up as best as I can to set them up with challenges that are going to be a little bit harder. I have a child who does not like to wake up in the morning. Homeschooling does help with that. We will often have our breakfast while we're doing our work at their table, and it's in our. I ask them to brush their teeth because I just think that's just to have the right manners, but we're allowed to have that slow day to just sit and not rush with the 7:30 a.m. start time with the lunches and everyone running out the door with, it was just chaos when we used to do that before. and I can individualize their education. So I have a child who loves to read, and so I could pick books that are, literature books are hard. When they are reading age, I could have that time to just really research into the topics, what are the themes that are going throughout this, and I could really build and customize as much as I want to be able to give their interests all that attention. I have another child who really is excelling in math, so we were able to move ahead during our summer to work through a grade level to work at another higher level in math. So I thought that that was really nice for us to be able to see where each of my kids are going to excel. One struggles with math facts, so I was able to implement a program in our day that was specific for math memorization, and that was tremendous in their growth of math and their joy, where before it was met with tears and frustration and struggle. So I was able to sit there with them in that. And obviously time. We have 4-day weekends. We have that flexibility of hanging out and fellowshipping with family and friends after church. We aren't bound to spring break schedules. We were able to take that in March. We went to London. We went to Sacramento as a family for a 4th grade trip. So we did all of the things together. We have all of our work done by midday. And my kids are very self-sufficient now. So when they know that there's a trip coming up, they work double the workload. And so they finished all their work ahead because they didn't want to take workbooks on vacation. And so they were able to manage their time, and they reached out to their teachers or, Mom, what do I need to have done? And so they were able to build those skill sets to work ahead and say, what can I do so that I could earn my playtime? And so we got our work done. We were able to take our time and vacation on our own schedule, which also helped with finances. And we are busier than we were when we were in a public or private school model. We have activities from sports. Both our kids are involved in the community sports activities, so they get lots of socialization. We do a little bit of, I don't know how to say this, but I use contract out. I don't know. I have my kids take certain classes or subjects, and so my son learns, he is well proficient in Zoom. He can also be, which is helpful with typing and to learn just those modern technologies that some of the kids are expected to do now. They do in-person learning with another teacher as well. They do home-based learning with me. So they have a few different classroom settings. So that's been just a little bit of what we do.
Okay, well, if you don't feel confused, we'll add Karen to the mix.
Well, for
Karen,
me,
why should we hybrid?
I get the best of
Yeah,
all
yes.
these. So I get to tap into the public school system because it's free. That's huge. You can take the kids to the classes and it's free. Like if I have my daughter in science class, all the lab work, all the things that materials that are needed, they're there. And so there's a K-8 program, which my daughter in 8th grade has done. It's the Capo Virtual Homeschool. And then the high school portion is the Cal Prep Academy. So they get to go and take a couple classes at the high school and then do the rest of their work at home. And then the middle school, she's taking math and science there. So she gets to use their resources for free. But then at the same time, basically, just to cap, I guess in a big picture, it's the flexibility. I get to choose the courses that I want my kids to be doing. And then also, it's just the influence that I can have more in their lives. Because as you know, the kids do get older. I know the ones with the young ones, the days are very long, but the years will be very short. And just being able to have that influence in the home when they do their work at home, I can spend that time shaping them, influencing them, and just character development. So I know with what I just said about taking classes on campus, that's just been so neat to see, just like what Unji was saying, is just being part of the community. My oldest is in the orchestra, so it's sweet when she can put on music for the community, like at Soka University right up the hill. Anyone can go, and she's there performing, and she's being an influence with her peers and being able to get that social interaction, working as a team with other people. So there's an opportunity for that. And my other daughter, she gets to be part of the school activities. Even though she's part of the homeschool program, she can still participate in all their fun events, their fundraisers. But at the same time, it's part of the homeschool program, so she doesn't have to be there all day. And like Julia was saying, like if they finish their coursework early, they get to have a little time to themselves. And it's not just all about schoolwork. You know, there's a lot of things that we like to fit in the schedule. And as you busy moms know, there's extracurriculars. And so after school, usually that's when it's most busiest. But a lot of times we have time in the morning to do music lessons. So we're a big music family. 2 of the girls play violin. My other one plays piano. And so it's just nice so we don't have to fight for the afternoon slots when the teachers are most busiest. We just go in the morning, and she's like, sure, come on in. And it's just so much flexibility. I just really appreciate that in our life. And also the rides to there, we can have conversation. Whereas if they were at school, I don't have that time with them. And just being able to have the time just to make field trips sporadically. I can go to like Tanaka Farms, or we can go to the Great Park just to explore the farm labs. And if they were away, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so I know a lot of you guys are young moms, and a lot of you guys can do co-ops and maybe pair up with another mom and have that time just to be able to like, hey, you take a subject and I'll take this subject. Let's plan a field trip and let's have little school together. So if that's an option, that's something that you guys can think about with flexibility in school versus if they were sent all day, then you won't be able to choose what you would like your kids to learn. And I just really appreciate having the girls, the older girls, in public school for a certain time. They're not there all day, but at least they are there to be involved in the community. That's a big part of our life, is just to be involved. And so my oldest has a high school ministry, so she's able to invite her friends to the True North Club, which is the high school club. And then they can get together outside of class, and they come here to church and then invite families to church. And just to be a light to others, and it's a good balance, I would say. And yeah, I feel like it's huge having them be part, not just in the school community, but, you know, we have, like Julia was saying, with being able to be in the sports clubs, being in soccer. And so when we have flexibility in the schedule, there's daytime soccer for kids who have the flexibility of that. And again, I mentioned orchestra. The girls are outside of school. They actually have another program on the weekends. Yeah, so I just really appreciate the flexibility that we have when we're able to do this hybrid model, I guess you can say.
Well, clearly all 4 options are excellent options. And thank you for very honestly and humbly presenting those 4 options to us. But we know that there's no perfect method. So what about the reasons we should be maybe thinking a second time about your option? What are maybe some of the reasons someone might be reluctant to take that option? What are some of the things that you've seen that may be like a downfall regarding your option? What would you say, Angie?
So for public school, definitely it's not flexible at all. You do have to be there in that structured system the whole time. So we can't adjust our schedule according to us. It has to be according to what the school says. But more than that, I think the biggest disadvantage being at a public school is definitely the wide exposure to worldly influences that are out there that are out of our control. They are out of our care for a good chunk of the day. And within that time, every single day that they're out, they are building those relationships with people that teachers and students and staff that we don't really know who they are. We don't know them personally, and we can't be there to to kind of help along that relationship. If it's a bad one, to guide them away. If it's a good one, to build it up. It's really up to the children and the adults, and so that's definitely something that you have to be mindful of. They are meeting a lot of people from different backgrounds, different worldviews, maybe even religions. But it could be a good thing, but it's also an extra added influence in their life. And so, yeah, through the years, my children have experienced bullying where we did have to get the principal and staff involved. And it didn't really work out the way that we wanted it to. It had to be according to the school system. So that's something that we do have to keep in mind. I asked my oldest, and he said that vaping and swearing is a regular thing in his life that he sees. And that's something that he just had to get used to, which, also we want to be careful of.
What grade is he in again?
He's a freshman. So he doesn't like to use the bathrooms in high school because of that. Yeah, so we really, as we send them out into the world, we do have to really trust that God is in control, that He will allow things to happen, and when we pray, He will give us the wisdom to deal with that and to guide them and to prepare them as they do become adults in this world, just so that they wouldn't be taken aback, or that they would be prepared. And also in public school, your children will take science, like classes like science and health, where they will teach things that are not biblically oriented. And they will have to learn to discern between evolution and things like that. And also like LGBTQ student rights. These are things that are being more and more pushed in the school nowadays. And so our children do have to have those conversations with us where we can help them to discern what's truth and what's not. And hopefully with those conversations, they'll be able to pinpoint those things that are not good for them. I feel like we have had those conversations quite a lot. And so, for example, our second came home and said, "Oh, my science teacher taught us that, humans have tailbones." And he said that, it's because we don't need tails anymore. And he said, I realize that that's really silly. So it's good that he's able to discern the differences now. And so, yeah, just prayerfully, we need to make sure that they understand what is biblical and what is not, and that what is taught in the school system is it's separate. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Jen, what would you add to that?
So really echoing a lot of what Unji said about public school, you have to keep in mind that people send their kids to a private Christian school for many reasons. And so there are going to be influences from kids that are all over the place, all kinds of different backgrounds. So you have to have your guard up. You can't just drop your kid off at a private Christian school and expect them to develop a biblical worldview just at school. The thread has to continue in your home, at your local church, and with your church body. So the small class sizes do limit social interactions. When you have a class of 20 and those are your kids' friends that move up with them, that's not that many kids. So I think it's important to be socializing outside of the school environment. So, playing sports, making friends in your neighborhood, making sure that you're that you're encouraging church friends too, and really curating your kids' friendships so that it's not just at school that they're making friends. Not all private Christian schools are created equal. Some are more focused on excelling at academics, or maybe it's more of a balanced education and bringing in different things. Our school, for example, has the motto of God, family, country. So while God is first and foremost, we also teach them a lot about respecting our military and our first responders, and how to be a good American citizen. It's also really important to think about do your homework and make sure that your values line up with what the school's values are. The people that are there are going to be influencing your kids. They're going to be helping to develop their view of our perfect and holy God. So you want to make sure that what the Bible says lines up with what they're teaching, even at a private Christian school.
Yeah, thank you for that input. What about you,
I
Julie?
forgot one.
Oh,
and
throw it in.
It's a big one.
Don't forget it. Okay. Yes. Yes.
The cost.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is a tuition
Yeah,
at,
yes.
at a private Christian school. And just something to think about, though, a lot of Christian schools do offer tuition assistance and scholarships. So even though it is a concern, it might not be what you think it is.
Yeah, and you guys have 4, so that's the cost times 4. Yeah, and you're making it. Julia.
For the first is comparison. As a homeschooler, you are going to be your worst critic as a mom, as a teacher, because it's not what I didn't grow up being homeschooled, and many of us didn't have that model around us. So your natural tendency is going to be comparing it to what the schools do, or even what your fellow other homeschool mom would be doing. So because it's home-based, every home is different. Every home's values are different. Your people in your home are different. So that will be one of the biggest things you're going to just consistently just work through as a mom. You have an information overload, especially nowadays. There's many curriculums, programs, types of homeschooling is very different from one to the next. So there's so many options. So having that ability to look through it, go to your husband and not usurp, like going over his opinion would be very hard. You have to be able to use wisdom and guidance of what is really our priority, and not thinking that this is the model, and if I do this and do that, this is what I get as a product of a child, which also could be another downfall, is emphasizing academics versus what is truly important in your home of training and discipleship. Education is important, but it's not our priority. Their performance on their test is not a reflection of you as a parent or their success. So as much as you tell yourself this is something I have to consistently tell myself, that it's not a reflection of how well I'm homeschooling. It's not how well my kids are doing. It's just a reminder of the areas that we are all working on, me as their teacher and them as the student. Another way that you have to look out for is being isolated. So some families might think that this is my job and my role, so I have to make sure everything is going to reflect that, where I'm going to pull out of maybe my social activities that we had before, or not being involved in the things that we were before because this is precedence. This is our schooling time, this is how we do it. We need to make sure we have enough time to get through this curriculum, and that could be very overwhelming. You want to make sure that's balanced. You have to learn how to say no to a lot of things. There's field trips beyond field trips. One of the misconceptions, I don't know if it's still there, is homeschoolers aren't socialized. And it's not a dining table homeschooling culture anymore. There's so much more that you do outside, but you have to remember it's home base. You need to stay home to educate your children, to know what's important first, reading God's word, doing what life skills are at home first, so that they could see you living out faith and not just emphasizing the academics, the performance, and the workload.
Great. Yes.
Important. Your kids are always with you. They're with you to your doctor's appointments, your dentist, the haircuts, the beauty salon.
Yeah.
They're grocery shopping with you. You are you are with your children, and they're watching you. So you are always with your children.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, again, it taps into all these worlds, but a lot of it, I think this model of having the girls at the public school and then at home and then all these various things, it is the time management, and that's hard sometimes. It was really overwhelming when I first started this. It wasn't before, because the girls were in public school full time. or they did do a year of private school when they were younger. It was like, oh, send the kids 8 to 3, great. What can I do? I can go for a run. I can meet up with a friend. I could go do some grocery shopping without thinking I have to pick up someone or do this or put someone, in this class. So a lot of it is denying yourself when it comes to if it is a home-based learning, and just flexibility on your part, and again, my husband's part, and just being on the same page. And so a lot of that is just time management, learning how to prioritize. I've learned how to do a lot of prioritizing, which means less baking sometimes, but that's okay. Because sometimes we do have baking classes at home, which is also nice. And then also with homeschooling, even though we are with a charter and they do provide funds from the state, I do send my youngest to an independent learning center twice a week, and some of it is out of pocket. So, yes, a pro is that I get to choose her classes and what she's learning, but then a lot of the times it does cost, and there's some money involved, whereas with the public school, those are free. And so that's why it is the best of both worlds, where you can have and choose the classes that I want. Some are free, and then some are not.
Thank you. That's so helpful to hear not only the reasons why, but just some of the cautions that you've all brought up. And we really appreciate that, and just love the fact that, again, we're just saying these are the options out there. So since there are so many options, how did you go about making this decision for your kids? What does that look like? Thinking about our guests here, they're going to be presented with these options. What did it look like for you, Unji, when you chose public school?
So I think when we first started out, we just did it because public school is what we knew. But with our second, we did pull him out for a little while, just a year, to try homeschooling for a year, and then we sent him right back. And the reason being was when we were preparing to send him to kindergarten, he was having a really hard time in public preschool. He was having a hard time adjusting, and he was having multiple meltdowns each day. And so we decided that he wasn't ready for kindergarten yet, so we decided to homeschool him for TK. So after about 6 months of just trying to drill into this strong-willed child, my husband made the executive decision that we would get help from a dual immersion school for TK. And that's basically just TK being taught in 2 languages, Korean and English. And so we sent him for the second half of the year to a dual immersion school, and it was a smaller class, and it was a great thing for him. He really thrived in that small classroom setting. He learned to follow the rules and be a part of a group. And so we decided that we would send him back to kindergarten in public school, which was literally like 10-minute walk up the street versus 30 minutes to Irvine every other day. So at that time, we really didn't think that continuing homeschool for him and his personality was beneficial for him at the time. We thought it was more counterproductive. So we decided to go back to the public school system. And I don't know if that was the best choice, but it's worked for us because of where we live, because of the schools that we have, because God has allowed good teachers to come into our kids' lives. And it's been a really great training ground for them to learn to deal with different personalities and different situations that come up, and then we can prepare them to be in this world, but not of the world. So yeah, that's the decision that we had made.
Yeah, that's great. Jen, how did you guys decide private would be the best?
So every year we've had to, grapple with it. And it's been up to God every single year. I would just say that the numbers have never made sense. But our older one, has been in private school since he was in kindergarten. And that's because he's my stepson, and the school that we put him in is kind of halfway between our house and her house. We couldn't find a solution for a school that was closer to either one of us. But that decision has been pretty obvious year over year, and he's a freshman now. But it's a good place for him. It's stable and secure in that he, lives between 2 houses. So it's a really good thing for him. With our younger 3, we never thought that we could could manage 4 kids in private school. And so when my daughter was going into kindergarten, she was registered for public. But we decided, because it was COVID and things were changing so quickly, that we were going to put her in private school. And somehow God has made a way year over year for us to be able to do it. It's important to decide what you're willing to sacrifice. So our family, we don't go on vacations. We stay close to home. We camp in a tent, and we make it fun. We go to lots of different stores a week and deep freeze our meat to save costs on groceries. I'm a thrifter. We get a lot of our clothes hand-me-down, secondhand. We save wherever we can. And we are really fortunate to have some help from grandparents as well. So as my daughter approaches middle school, she's kind of standing out as an athlete, and we're not really sure what it's going to look like for her in middle school and high school years. But, we're leaving it up to God. We're trusting him, in every going around every corner and in each season. And we also, we trust our school to help us kind of navigate those things too. Yeah.
That's great. Julia, how did you guys decide homeschool was the route you were going to take?
It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy yes. My background is in education, but one role I never wanted to be was the teacher. My background is in school counseling, and so at that time I was working at a homeschool charter. And that's when the COVID pandemic happened, and we realized that there were gaps because there's just pure number of children versus adults, and there just wasn't that help, and they were just flying under the radar. So we first, we prayed. And so we asked God for wisdom, because that's who you go to for wisdom. And if you ask to him, he will give that to you. And he knew exactly what was in our future, although I had very big fears of, one, leaving my career and then becoming not only a mom, but a homeschool mom. That just felt way too much for me. But with prayer and talking to people, you need to look and see the ones who are around you who may be a little ahead of you, and who have tried different options, and ask them what their process was like. And so we went through that route, and we knew that we knew our children better than anyone else. We knew what makes them go. We know where their strengths and their weaknesses are. We knew where we wanted them to grow. So we had so much confidence in that we wanted to give it a try. And so we said, 1 year, we'll give it a try. We are now 6 years into this, and I don't know where every year is, like we've said, is just giving it up to the Lord. We have the support also of a charter school. So I felt confident in teaming up and partnering with a certificated teacher who is going to keep us online and on track of what I was missing. And so I could also get the funds to help with all of the programs. So we do piano, we do probably more activities than we would if we were just in school 7 days a week. But that was how we have approached it, and we still reconsider during open enrollment every January. I might be filling out an application to one of the schools, but it's to the Lord, and he works out my fears, and he shows me the direction, regardless if I feel confident in it or not. And my husband and I have conversations throughout the year, and that's how we are here.
That's great.
Yeah, for me, it was the year of COVID. As much as we don't want to ever face that again, there was good that came out of that, because my oldest was in 5th grade at that time, and just seeing how it was run and how what she lacked, it was kind of concerning, because she did not know how to write a decent paragraph, and her grammar was a little off. Her paragraphs consisted of 2 sentences that didn't deal with the topic. And so it was a lot of learning at home. And even though, we chose where we live currently because of the school system, it's a great school, and they're rated pretty high, and all the teachers are great. They're great people, but it was just concerning that she didn't even know the foundations of what a fifth grader should know. And even with math, it was just like foundations that she struggled with. So that was really eye-opening for my husband and I. And even going to a parent-teacher conference, the teacher was like, "Oh, we'd love to have 30 of your daughters. She's just great. She's a great student. She's always there." I'm like, "Yeah, but what about these things that she's supposed to know?" And yeah, she just flew under the radar, a great student. But it was a little concerning when what she's supposed to be learning at school, she just couldn't. So that, I think it was when COVID hit, February, March, and then we finished off the year, then my husband found this program through the Capo district, free. Again, it was the Capo virtual homeschool program that allowed kids to work independently at home, and they were already set, they were already in motion. It wasn't like the school was trying to figure out what to do. So that was what jump-started us into looking into this program, but it was also nice that they could take 2 classes on site, and you can choose which 2 classes. So then the following couple years, then she was able to go back to campus and just to be able to see friends again and just to do all the perks of school, but also be able to have the influence of home. And then with our youngest, since she is starting from scratch, before that, so my oldest in 3rd grade, she asked me to homeschool her. I'm like, I'm not a homeschool teacher. I'm not those moms. Those are great moms, but not me. But with the perk of this hybrid model, like they give you the curriculum, so everything is set. I'm just kind of there to walk alongside her. And so when she did essays, even for my 1st and 2nd, being in 3rd grade, I took what I learned from the 5th grade program and implemented it to my 3rd grade. And then I was like, I can kind of be a teacher. But because I had that curriculum, it was already set, and I didn't have to dig up my own things. So homeschool does not have to be that daunting. It can be, but if there's a little help and there's a little set things that a structure that you can go by, it's very doable. And then going back to my youngest, she started homeschooling, never been in the public school. So if kindergarten is when we started, and that was good. I think I handle kindergarten stuff. And now she's in 1st grade. She's reading okay and answering comprehension questions. So I'm like, okay, I think this is doable. So if anyone is a little hesitant, there are options to get you started where it's not so daunting and just like, okay, you're the teacher, you're responsible for everything. There are people, like Julia said, that can come alongside you. There's homeschool teachers who are trained to help you and to walk alongside of you if you are doing a charter. So yeah, that's how we got started, and it's still a journey.
Yes.
Still a journey. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate that because it's neat to hear how you guys made those decisions for your unique families and your unique kids. I'm sure that a lot of our guests might have husbands or family members that aren't on the same page with them. What would you say, based on your experience in the decision-making process that you've experienced in your home, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them regarding, you have your husband on a different page, you have a family member on a different page. How do you work through this and come to that decision as a team?
I think answers can vary, but for our household, I value peace. I want to be a peacemaker. And so between me and my husband, it's always laying out pros and cons. Let's walk through why we want this decision, why do we not, what is good about this path and what's not. And thankfully, nothing is set in stone. Yeah. And I mean, because again, the communication is very big for us. I think having that peace in our household would be key. So if we do differentiate, I do know that one decision, if I do follow my husband's and it does not match with mine, I know it's not going to be set in stone because it could change year by year.
Yeah, that's great. Julia.
Yeah, when we started, my husband was not a fan of homeschooling. He had the very traditional ideals of it. So I wasn't, again, that wasn't my dream, so I never pushed for it, but God worked in our hearts, and he worked in my husband's heart, and I was not pushing for one way or the other. We saw that our kids needed certain areas to focus on, so we know that there's no perfect way. And I think one of the biggest things that was hard was seeing that we had changed our child from private, public, and homeschool, and we didn't want to have this evolving year after year change. That was a huge concern of his, and so we just said, well, let's just take it year by year. And we are now 6 years, and has said, I would still like to homeschool. But it's never been something I've just held on too tight. I've just said, Lord, whatever you have for it, it has to be something that my husband has to agree to as well. If it's not there, and it's what you would desire for us to do, change his heart and let us be unified in our decision, wherever that may be. And I know that that's not easy. It took a lot of time. And even throughout our academic years, we've had to pivot in how we homeschool. There are ways that he has come alongside and said, I don't know if this is the best for our family. So let's, like this year, we added a specific math tutor, because 6th grade math is not, I can do it, but it's much more work. And he said, hey, let's just change this. And I said, okay. And I have to be willing to pivot. I was able to remove a class that we had already started and paid for and bought the books and did the whole commitment. And I don't like to quit mid-year, but it wasn't right. And so it's that letting loose and being able to say to your husband, okay, like, let me pray, and Lord, if my heart's not there, I'm going to pray first for it. And it's just year by year, and I go to him, he doesn't want to know all the details. He doesn't need to, he wants to be invited to some of the field trips. We went to the baseball Angel Stadium, and that's like huge. I think that's what's really neat, is they could do that. But he trusts me, and that's huge. And I go to him with things, and he's able to say, let's wait, let's pray, let's think about this. So we are constantly evolving.
That's super good. Jen, what about you? What would you say regarding being maybe not on the same page with your husband, or on the same page, or if you guys get out of sync, or family members or whatever?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, with like you and your husband being on the same page would be the number one thing. So kind of taking the other family members that might be inserting their opinions, and just having that discussion with your husband only. But one thing I would just say is that moms, we tend to think that we are the expert on our children. And while that might be true in a lot of situations, our husbands have a lot of important input to share. And we have to be willing to listen to their input and have that as part of our, if we're laying out all the pros and cons and making a decision, having their input is a big part of that too. And, ultimately, if we don't line up, God's word says that we are to yield. And so he would call us to be okay with whatever it is that our husband is saying. I think we have to make this choice. And if that's the case, trusting our husband's decision and trusting God in that decision. Those would be the key things for me.
Yeah, that's great. Angie.
Yeah, just like Jen said, we think that we know our kids the best, but I think for me, my husband knows me the best, and I do trust in him and what he thinks is the best for our family as a whole. And so I want to respect that and follow along with that. And honestly, I've asked my husband every year, we should homeschool. Should we homeschool? We should homeschool. And every year he says no. So so I trust in his decision, and I respect him and what he wants for our family.
Yes, that's fantastic. What last bit of advice would you give to our ladies? Just a couple lines, a couple encouragements to them when it comes to educating their kids. They should always remember to
just hold things loosely. God can call us to a different place, to a different season, any moment. So I don't want to be stuck on this one decision that I've made. Like Julia said, that God will provide the wisdom and the guidance that you need. And also, we have so many people in this church who have already been through it. So reach out to your leaders. They can connect you to someone that has already been through what you're thinking about. So reach out.
Super good.
I would say number one, trust God. Do your homework. Know know what the options are, know exactly what you're walking into. Don't rule anything out. Like I said, putting 4 kids in private school never seemed like an option for us. I know I hear a lot of people say things like, I could never homeschool, but there's so much out there, so many resources, and I hear people say they would never public school too, and that's not, that's a good option too. They're all good options, so leave it open and decide things year over year, and be willing to change if it's not working, because again, every kid is different. It's not even just every family, it's every kid.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Great.
If you are thinking about education, you have to have a love of learning, but your first love has to be your time with the Lord. Regardless of whatever you choose, you need to be working on your spiritual disciplines. You need to be praying. You need to be reading your word. And that means being in a Bible study, showing up here, being with other women who are like-minded, because you need that time to really grow and to show your children that you're growing as well. And that's a great first model as a teacher. You need to be able to work on that because you need patience. You need patience in motherhood and patience in schooling ages.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, just nothing is set in stone. The decision make today doesn't have to be for years to come. And just to recap, yeah, every kid is different. You might send a kid to public school. You might homeschool the other one. They might be doing the hybrid system. There's options, and just thankful that we have options and choices. But even though things are changing, it's nice to know that God doesn't change, and that we can trust in Him, knowing that He loves your kid more than you do.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning, for being honest and humble and transparent here, and just giving us a lot of great information when it comes to making these choices. As I mentioned, I worked as a private Christian high school teacher for 5 years. I homeschooled my kids for 16 years, and then I sent my daughters to public charter and public school. And I can say that there is no perfect method. These are all great methods. Every family's unique, every kid's unique. And in the end, I think it's not really which path do we choose, but how we walk down that path. Are we walking down that path loving God and loving others, committed to serve God and serve others? And if so, that's really what we need to focus on. How are we doing what we're called to do rather than which path we choose when it comes to these methods? So thanks, and I hope this is useful to you, and hope you guys have a great time in your discussion groups.